Hi folks, we're coming to you live a little bit early today because I wanted to show off the ridiculousness of a Pacific Northwest spring. It is snowing right now. It was raining earlier and hailing, and it was beautiful and sunny. So if that's not all seasons in one less than couple hour period, I don't know what to tell you. Spring has sprung, and in the spirit of kind of looking for clues for what season it is, today is confusing. So let me flip us around here. We're out at Titlow Beach Park. Right now, the train's not here, and hopefully my hand is doing a good enough job to protect us from the wind. It's possible you can kind of see the sideways. I guess it's more like sleeting right now because it's wet snow. There's a harbor seal popping up here. You can see it to the left of that piling. It just swam behind, and there it is again. Hopefully that Tacoma Narrows Bridge gives us a sense of place here in Washington State on the Puget Sound, again at Titlow Beach Park. For those of you tuning in, I'd love to know what warm, cozy place you're watching from. Hopefully it's somewhere cool. You can see, I don't know, there was some spring foliage on my walk over here. Spring is sprung, y'all, and the weather is showing it. So, of course, we're out here on the second Tuesday of the month in these more wintertime months to collect a water sample. And this is for the Blue Water Task Force Water Quality Monitoring Program. It's something Harbor Wild Watch does in partnership with the South Sound Surfrider chapter. Surfrider has an incredible water quality testing program where volunteers get to go out, collect samples, and then those samples are analyzed for Enterococcus, in our case, essentially harmful bacteria, because we don't want all our cool cats all swimming in poo. That's not for you, or me, or anybody. Glad to see that Mary's tuning in. We've got Jenny and Kathy and Sheila. Welcome, welcome. It's worse than it looks, I think. It's pretty cold and wet, but not soaking. So I guess it could be even worse than it actually is. You'll notice that the cormorants out on the pilings are all tucked in. Often you'll see those birds with their wings outstretched. They're a diving bird that don't have oil in their feathers, similar to these seagulls seen in the foreground. So when they get in the water, they have to dry their feathers off. And so you'll see them extending their wings. And if you're on our newsletter list, there was just a cormorant feature, and you'll see some of the Titlow Beach Park cormorants with their wings outstretched. And we, of course, like to make the joke that they're telling their buddies, "I caught a fish this big," with a big wide wingspan. So, a lot of birds. And again, that harbor seal earlier. I'm also, these little specks out on the water are some golden eyes. And, let's see, there was a grebe, nice tiny little bird. And then over here, there was a couple buffleheads and maybe a merganser. So it's still winter birding season. We just finished up the Puget Sound Seabird survey on the first weekend of April. So kind of our birds community science is wrapped up for a while. Oh, there's some more golden eyes. Of course, they're diving birds, so you can't really, they're gonna dive whenever you want to look at them. That's cool. There is some blue sky today, so that's exciting. I would call that right there a sucker hole, because if I looked at that and thought, yay, maybe I can wear shorts and sandals today, I would be a sucker. Not the case. Get your snow pants on, kids, although it has kind of stopped snowing at this point. Look at those ducks diving down. Lovely. And anyway, despite the weather, despite this madness, there are people who play in this water year-round, from polar plungers to kayakers, paddle boarders, scuba divers. Maybe you can let me know in the comments what fun thing you like to do to recreate in the water. Lots of beach walkers, tide poolers, all that good stuff. I certainly enjoy coming down, even though the tide's not too low right now. Here's a sign of spring. We have some algae. This is a couple things. So there's the Turkish towel here. It's got that bumpy texture, kind of looks like a washcloth. It is a red algae, and you can tell because if you pull on it, it has kind of a rubbery feel. There's also some green algae. This is Alva Lactucca, or sea lettuce. It is a seaweed that's only 2 cells thick, very prolific in the summertime. And then here's some, what I think is porphyra, or laver. This is the stuff you eat when you're eating sushi. Again, another red algae, kind of has that elastic texture compared to the sea lettuce. And then we even, oh my gosh, this little spot is perfect, have some brown algae. This is a piece of rockweed that's broken off. And there's even a little piece of sugar kelp. The way we know this is sugar kelp is it has these mulations down this blade. And it has a little stipe and a holdfast. This is the part of the seaweed that would stick to rocks and anchor it down. Looks like it's not doing a great job anchoring today because it's kind of getting washed up along this tide line. So you can see more seaweed as that water's pushing it up. And man, I always forget to look at the tide on these days, whether it's going in or out. But the seaweed is your kind of clue where the last high tide was. So you can see, I feel like it's getting, we could make some observations here and do some predictions. So without even looking at a tide chart, I'm gonna guess that the tide is on its way out because the water is leaving behind this seaweed. It's also possible that a boat came by and gave us some bigger waves, and maybe the tide is still coming in to push that seaweed up. But we'll take another look, and if this line of seaweed here is more underwater or less underwater, that'll be our clue. So in the time that we do this live, we'll have some information about what's happening with the water level. It is really cool because here in the Puget Sound, this water goes in and out 2 times a day. So there's 2 high tides and 2 low tides of differing heights. And your word of the day is mixed semi-diurnal tides. That's a mouthful for what's happening with the water in the Puget Sound. 2 high tides and 2 low tides of differing heights. Blammo. And for as miserable as it was like 10 minutes ago, it is turning into a pretty nice afternoon. It is no longer snow raining. It is no longer windy, and there's still no trains, and we're at Titlow Beach Park, which is miraculous in itself. So cheers to all of you tuning in. Again, let me know where you're watching from. Would love to know what cozy warm place you're at. Being that the tide is not significantly low this moment, there isn't a ton to see, but we'll keep kind of perusing this algae line because there's more cool stuff. Check out this sea noodle. This is another red algae, Sarcodia theca godowshii. It really does look like a very succulent spaghetti. I'm sure it doesn't quite taste the same, but you can see it has those little branchy bits on that center stalk and kind of dangles out. Would make a nice mermaid hair, I think. Some more of that sugar kelp kind of washed up. Rachel and I both love Titlow Beach Park because of all the cool seaweed that we find here. There's bitty baby bull kelps that grow up to be big bull kelps, of course. And here's that sugar kelp. Part of what makes this a cool habitat for things like that bull kelp is the current here is swift. And that fast-moving water helps that bull kelp thrive. And the Narrows is one of the few places, at least according to a conference a couple years ago, there was a presentation showing how bull kelp is declining throughout the Sound, except for at the Narrows. So the fact that a lot of water has to travel between those bridge posts, it's kind of that thin spot where all the South Sound connects to the North Sound here, and as the tide's changing, that water can really, really rip through that channel. And so the water stays cold there because there's so much movement, whereas in other places, like bays, you might get less water exchange, and so that temperature can is allowed to be a little bit warmer, which isn't what bull kelp likes to thrive in. I don't know if y'all see that harbor seal is back, zigzagging through those pylons here for us. You can see the little head. The way we know this is a harbor seal and not a sea lion is kind of the gist of it. The way it is just kind of popping up. If we got a closer look, we'd notice it doesn't have like ear flaps. So harbor seals, their ears are internal, so you don't see the cute little like bunny ears that a sea lion has. Okay, a sea lion doesn't have bunny ears, but I've got Easter on the brain, I guess. Yes, the floating harbor seal head. Down, hopefully catching some yummy fish between these pilings. Seems like a good place to hunt. Again, if there's that kelp, that is a habitat that all sorts of creatures rely on here in the Puget Sound to survive, thrive, lay eggs, find food, hide from predators, the whole thing. Yes, I can't kelp it. Thank you, Rachel. That's hilarious. But that kelp is so important for so many different parts of the food web. Again, between these pilings, there's not going to be kelp forests necessarily. They're going to be more along the shorelines here, but we do again see that bull kelp sparsely inhabiting this place. Titlow is a marine preserve, which is another kind of cool thing. So you're not allowed to collect things here. Things are protected. We appreciate that. Kind of giving us a peek at this tide line. It hasn't quite been enough time to give us a true guess on what the tide is doing, but just checking in one more time, see if our water level's going in or out right now. Making our way along what I'll call the rack line or the strand line. This seaweed that's been pushed up. Again, we're seeing some more familiar things that we saw at the beginning of this stream. That Turkish towel, that sea lettuce. Oh, this one's my favorite. I try not to do hierarchies and things because I just like a lot of stuff. But I think this might be some remnants of acid kelp. You can actually see kind of how the color is changed on this. That's when seaweed dies, it turns kind of white. And I don't actually have enough seaweed here to make a super clear confirmation, but I really want it to be acid kelp. So my confirmation bias is showing. Now that I'm looking at it closer, it does seem like it's missing its little veiny parts to truly make an acid kelp confirmation. But there is acid kelp at Titlow Beach Park, and it is really cool to see because it can actually etch rocks. So when that kelp lays on a rock, sometimes you'll get the little outline of it etched into the rock as it dries out in the sun. This to me, okay, this is definitely acid kelp. So see how we have that middle blade and it's a brown algae, and then you have these little they look like happy hands. Gonna make the kelp do like the silly wiggly man dance. So I don't know. This could definitely be a big chunk of acid kelp, but this is for sure confidently identifying this as acid kelp. So, spring is sprungin', folks. We've got cool seaweed coming back. That's something that we don't see a lot of in the winter because the daylight is less, and less daylight means that these algae can't photosynthesize, getting the energy they need to grow. But in the spring, as the days get longer, we definitely start to see our seaweed. You know, the middle of the summer, places will be covered in this green sea lettuce, which can actually kind of be a problem because to me it seems like it suffocates stuff out. Like, it is so thick and so everywhere that you can like feel how hot it gets when the tide goes out, and that's left behind just covering all of the beach. Pretty nuts. Okay, so a couple other things before we go. The rocks eat my signal, so we're gonna stay on this side of the beach. Sorry about that, folks. I want to go look at the barnacles, though. We'll try and keep our phone high and just do the zoom thing. Okay, more cool green algae growing on this rock. All these rocks. Y'all, this is a perfect example of some zonation happening in the high intertidal zone. You have that kind of band of green, and then as we go down, you can see the bands of barnacles, that band of this fucus or rockweed that we saw a piece of, now attached to the rocks here. They kind of have a cool float filled with what I like to think of as aloe vera. Of course, that's not what it is because that comes from a different plant, and this is an algae, so they're totally different kingdoms, but similar goo. I love a good plant with goo, you know? This is one of them. Although, wait, sorry. That's confusing because it's not a plant, it's an algae. I love a good gooing organism. Perhaps let's say that. Okay. Anyways. One other thing, Mary's giving us the tides here. Thanks, Mary. Tide was high after 11 a.m. and it will be high again at 6. So it is transitioning. I don't know. Let's see. 11. I can't do math in my head right now. Let's talk about this crab molt instead. Thanks, Mary, for trying to help me. This is a piece of a kelp crab. And that's pretty cool, because that lets us know there's probably some cool creatures climbing up these pilings with their pointy little toes. Maybe loving up on that bull kelp habitat that we talked about earlier. These crabs, like all crabs, to grow bigger, have to shed their outer hard shell. And to do that, they essentially unzip. You can see this edge along the line. And they pull their entire body out like you'd pull your hand out of a glove. So they take their legs and their pinchers and their eyeballs and their little mouth parts, which aren't really attached to this piece anymore. Their gills, all the things. Take it away, and they grow a new, bigger, harder, well, maybe the same hard, a new, bigger shell that hardens over time. And then we'll have to molt again as that crab needs to get bigger. This, I know it's a kelp crab because of the shape. Kind of looks like a sheriff badge, maybe. A little star. It's got the very dramatic points on the two tips. It's nice. Crab molts are a good way to practice your crab wrangling because there's, well, especially in this case, nothing that can pinch you. So, kind of neat to see and handle and observe, right? I'm noticing maybe some things I don't normally get to see on a live crab because you can't look inside, but we can wonder like, ooh, what's attaching to the top of this shell, and just noticing these interesting colors and patterns. Hopefully not any smells. If it's a molt, they don't usually stink. If it's a dead crab, oh buddy, you'll know it because you'll probably smell it before you see it. And if you do touch it, sorry, but you'll smell like a dead crab probably all day. So get over to a hand wash station and as I learned in New Orleans, wash your hands. Oh my gosh, I missed it. A fish just jumped. But wash your hands as if you just ate crawfish and are about to take your contacts out. That is the level of hand washing you're going to need if you handle a dead crab. Luckily for me, this is just a shell of a molt, so it doesn't stink. That fish jump out of the corner of my eye was a really big looking fish. Silvery, unknown identity, but still pretty cool. All right. Let's see. Oh, Mary says low tide around 6. Okay, cool. So we have an outgoing tide. I'm not sure what this algae is up here. Maybe if this is our 11 o'clock, things haven't moved very far. So I'm sure it's all fine. Anyways, okay, so looking around, let's point out a couple more things before we go get our water sample for today. Again, every second Tuesday of the month in the wintertime, volunteers go out to collect water samples, making sure that the places we like to play are indeed safe for human contact and pet contact, all that good stuff. So essentially, a little vial of water gets taken, and then we bring it back to the Science and Math Institute, because we have a really cool partnership with that school and their lab space and their students, and they get to take a look at if there's harmful bacteria in the water. And then all of those results get posted on the Blue Water Task Force website, which you can take a look at. I'll always post that in the comments of these videos, as well as the events on our Facebook event and website events. And then you can see if the water's safe to play in. Of course, it is just a snapshot in time, so we can't guarantee that things, could change moments after we take the sample. So you kind of just get a look, and you can of course download all the results to see kind of the patterns over time. And then in the summer, it's neat because the Washington Health Department and Department of Ecology. Hold on, am I getting those places right? I'll think about that for a second. Anyways, our partners at the state level do sampling in the summertime, and they're looking at it on a more regular basis rather than just monthly, and of course do a lot of really good communicating about if it's not safe to go swimming, and we're in touch with them to make sure that if we were to get high bacteria hits, we can let them know, and then they'll do a resample to kind of corroborate our efforts and determine if it's indeed safe to go play at the beach or if something needs to get fixed. So it's really cool that Washington State folks work together with their community to ensure that these places we play are safe. I'm still just looking around at this seaweed, trying to see if there's more cool stuff for me to point out that's different from stuff we've seen earlier. This is one. This is another red algae, kind of similar to our sea noodles. I would guess that it's Prionitis, but it also is like really young and fresh, and so I'm like, grow up a little bit, give me some more identifying characteristics. But I'm noticing it has that center stalk with the branches off of it, really flat kind of blades with more protrusions. There's probably a real word for that. But yeah, we can look that up and cross-check our algae book. Here's another one. This is more filamentous. Oh, you guys, this one's cool, and I never remember the name of it. And I am so excited I'm not focusing. Yep, don't remember what it is, but it is a really beautiful red algae that kind of has almost like a lacy texture off of each of those blades. You can almost do like the hand algae press so you can see. Get a handful of water. There we go. How's that for a tattoo? That would be cool. But yeah, just really a delicate species of red algae. Beautiful to see in this high tide zone. Doesn't look nearly as cool when it's out of the water. It's kind of a blob. Nice. All right. Well, folks, I think that's going to wrap up our beach walk today. Thank you so much for tuning in as we are here to collect those water samples with, again, the South Sound Surfrider chapter in partnership with Harbor Wild Watch and all the other fabulous volunteers out and about at the 10 different sites that we're monitoring. We are excited that Owen Beach is finally going to open up again this summer, so that's a site we'll put back on our list. So when you look at the results, you might see, Owen Beach, why is there just a gray blob? That's not cool. But that's because we haven't been sampling it because the public access there is closed. And so since we can't get there, and we're going to assume that not many people there are recreating. So checking those active sites, saying hi to the geese flying in, more cool birds to see. So wherever you are, thanks again for tuning in. Go on your own adventure, go wonder, make some observations. We also, like those notices, stay warm even though it's April. Don't get caught in the snow or the hail or whatever other weird weather is happening. And if you do go recreate in the Puget Sound, feel free to check out the Blue Water Task Force website again and check those water quality results, because more information is always a good thing here. So thanks, Mary. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and your questions and comments and general Harbor Wild Watch love. We'll catch you for the last Blue Water Task Force Tuesday in May.